To chat with her about all things authenticity. Aly comes to us as a certified life coach, community leader, podcaster who is passionate about authenticity. She loves traveling, cooking, live music, personal development, and connecting with like minded people. And Aly, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to chat and just, get to know you a little bit better as well.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Okay, so you are currently in the Denver area, correct?
Yes.
And are you born and raised in Denver, or tell me a little bit about you?
No, I'm not. I was born in New Hampshire, lived in Vermont for the first 2 years of my life. And my dad had a construction business that unfortunately went under. And so my parents were reading a magazine one day and it had an article, the top 10 places to raise a family. And Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and Colorado Springs were both on the list, but they chose Iowa. So I spent the majority of my life in Iowa, in Cedar Rapids. I went to college there as well at Iowa State University. But I moved out to Denver probably, I want to say like 8.5 years ago now, in August of 2015. So
Awesome. Oh my gosh, I love it. So 8.5 years ago. So you've been here a while. Tell me, so what brought you to Colorado?
yeah, I mean, I never really identified with the political side and just like the culture of the Midwest. I mean, the coolest thing to do was cruising the avenue in high school. And, I just have bigger dreams than that. So I was dating a guy that was working in consulting and he had fallen in love with Denver through travel and just coming out here to snowboard and things like that. And so we were both living in Monticello, Iowa, which is like the tiniest town. I was working as the dietary director at a camp for people with special needs, which loved that job. I just did not love being voluntold all the time to do different things. And I was working 65-hour weeks with one day off, or working 14 days in a row with a half a day off, things like that. So in that relationship, we kind of just decided we wanted to explore Denver. So we booked a visit in January of 2015. We came out to Denver. We went to Boulder as well, and then also to Leadville at Ski Cooper. And I took my first snowboard lesson. And I was
So
like,
fun.
wow, the world is so much bigger than Iowa leads on. And so we made plans to move out here. And so we did in August of 2015.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
Wow. That's so cool. What a huge adventure. Now you've been here. You must like it because you've been here almost 10 years.
Yeah, no, I love it here. I mean, to be totally honest, it is getting a little busy for my liking. Traffic's a little bit crazy. And I've just, as an entrepreneur, I've learned to navigate the traffic and I just don't go into my co-working space during peak hours. So
Yeah.
I feel very fortunate that I'm able to accommodate that. And now I'll be able to ski on the weekdays. So that's super cool too. So I'm learning how to navigate the busyness.
I love it. I love it so much. Okay, so so you went from being a what was it?
Dietary director.
Director. And then you moved here and now you're a coach, you're an entrepreneur. There's like you do a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, what do you do? Tell everyone.
So currently I am a life coach. So I'm an authenticity coach. So I really help my clients become their truest authentic self. And I do that through values, through boundary setting, and just kind of exploring where my client is and where they want to be and helping bridge that gap. I also am a community leader. So I run a community called the Beauty Boost Denver. We are in 25 cities in 18 different states. So we are building what I would say is a global brand, but also each city owner is building their own local community and their own local brand. So that community is a community for women to feel empowered, healthy, and beautiful. And basically my goal there is to create a space for women to be able to show up authentically and find genuine, authentic connections in adulthood. I feel like I've talked to so many women that struggle finding friendship. Maybe you're in your high school crowd and those people aren't really aligning with your future, but you're not really sure like where to find those people. My community is that. And not only do I, want individuals to come and show up as their true selves and find connection. I also work with a lot of local female-owned businesses.
Excuse me.
Your
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good. To help them bring brand awareness for their company, for them to network and find potential clients, because my community is based, my target market, or the people that I attract in my community are in their 20s to 50s. They're all women that are into health and wellness.
Yeah.
And so I try to align my partners with, you know, my community so they can find potential clients and just, yeah, have more exposure.
I
It's
love it.
really, really fun.
It
Mhm.
seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong or if this is out of line, but I feel like it seems to me like the Beauty Boost is really, it's like that fun networking community where it's like you get to go hang out with your friends, make friends, but also create different business opportunities
Mhm.
for everyone involved. You know, and I think that from being in the beauty industry for so long, that word of mouth is such a key component. And it's like when one friend is doing something, it just kind of links together, right? And then it's like before you know it, you have two, three, four, five friends. It's like, oh, I need this. And then it's like, well, I have a whole network of people that can
Mhm.
help you with that. Take
Yep.
your pick.
Yes. That's one of the biggest bonuses of being this community leader is that I get to meet so many amazing women out, just trying to make their way and build their businesses. And so, there's been multiple times in my life where a referral through the Beauty Boost has significantly helped someone. So, for example, I took over ownership of the Beauty Boost in November of 2022. The community was already established by an amazing woman named Megan. And she was a full-time nurse and just kind of realized that her family was her passion project, not the Beauty Boost. And so I stepped in November, and she had this incredible partner, a brain-based chiropractor. And they signed on with me for 2023 because they love the community so much. And one of my friends, I referred her to Lynn. It's Lynn and Sam. They're a married couple that run this Wild and Precious Optimal Living. And one of my friends has struggled with autoimmune disease. And so she was like, I want to go work with Lynn. I want to see what my brain function looks like. And Lynn referred her before she would work with her. She said, hey, Courtney, I feel like you really need to meet this person and kind of see what's going on with your autoimmune. So through that connection, Courtney is now like pretty much on the track to be healed from her autoimmune disease.
Wow.
It's like things like that that just like, melt my heart of being able to be a social connector. I would say that's, my overarching identity outside of coaching, outside of the Beauty Boost, is really just connecting people to find whatever they're looking for, whether it's friendships, whether it's, a wax girl or a Reiki practitioner, all the things. Like I really just want to help people connect and support themselves in the best way that they can.
I love that. I love that story too. I think it's so beautiful and just uh so remarkable how these connections lead to things that sometimes we never would have otherwise even known existed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it's like there's some people out there that are looking for an answer, and it's like just in this conversation, it's like, oh, if
Mm-hmm.
I know someone with an autoimmune disease, I know who to contact and where to go. And um,
Mm-hmm.
but it's bigger than just business or even just the referral. It's like changing lives,
Mm-hmm.
truly,
Absolutely.
and I think that that's where some people get it a little mixed up, right? It's like so business forward and financial forward, and of course we're all trying to make it, but at the same time it goes deeper than that because we're human and we're having a human experience um
Mm-hmm.
that could potentially have saved your friend's life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you mentioned that we're all human, we're all having this experience, and it's not financially forward for me. There are other Beauty Boost communities that have been established for 6+ years that are making a ton of money doing it. And I am fully heart led. If somebody says, hey, I really want to be involved in your community and my budget, or, this is my situation, like I take each partner call very seriously. And I ask a lot of questions and ask for a lot of transparency so I can understand the financial situation. And I can say, okay, well, this is what we can do for you. I want you to be involved. I don't want to make my community, um, you know, outprice anybody or make it inaccessible. It's all about
Mhm.
accessibility, and anything that I can do to help somebody that doesn't hurt me personally, like I'm all for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I love to because I watch you on social all the time, and you're
Mhm.
always doing these fun things and on an adventure and in the outdoors. And
Mhm.
I'm always like, what is she doing? Where is she at now? Like, how come I don't know about this? So I think it's really cool that you also have this community that you're building to
Mhm.
make things more even known, like
Mhm.
what is available to us and
Mhm.
the opportunities that are out there, especially for people that are moving into Denver from somewhere else, which it, in 2021, 2020, 2021, that was me, like moving I'm a military spouse. So we move every couple of years. I got here and was kind of like, I have no friends. I got to go meet some people and I don't even know where to begin. Because like
Mhm.
you said, as an adult, it looks different.
Mhm.
It
It
looks
does.
different. What
It
are
is.
some of the things that you've realized or have figured out in best ways or practices to make friends as an adult?
I mean, I think the biggest key for me is looking for the people that align with your future and not your past, and making sure that I'm around women that and men that support me, that see me. And I do that through a lot of vulnerability and just being open and honest with people when I meet them of like, oh, this is who I am. This is kind of my jam. Um, and I have really deep, honest conversations with people from the beginning because I just feel like there's no point in me trying to like play this game of like, oh, I'm going to be cool for the first couple months and then I'm going to be myself, you know? And I feel like a
Right.
lot of people get stuck in that pattern in dating, but also in friendships, right? We're not true about what we need and what we want out of a friendship. And I think a lot of people also get stuck in this people pleasing mentality of like, oh, I just want to be liked. I just want to be liked. So I'm going to do whatever Aly wants or whatever. And I very much encourage the people in my life to show up authentically, tell me what their wants and needs are. And then if we align, like, let's be friends. But I find, the other thing is like putting myself out there in the community, going to meetups, going to events where I'm alone and I might feel a little bit nervous about that, pushing myself out of my comfort zone and then finding those communities that also align with my interests. I'm not going to go to meet up for golf, like nothing against golf. It's just not personally my hobby. So if I'm a podcaster also. So like I would go to podcasting meetups and find people that also podcast. And so I'm really aligning those people and those communities with where I'm at and where I want to be.
I love that. I didn't even know that there was a podcast meetup
Mm-hmm.
thing. Where do you find this stuff?
Honestly, through friends. I mean, it was through my friend Courtney that I was mentioning earlier. She's been podcasting for 2.5 years. And so she's really been that person that I've been like, okay, how do I do this? What do I do? And using her as a lighthouse for me in that journey. And so she sent me one day, like, hey, there's this podcast meetup in Denver. We should go. And so that's how it happens. And I think
That's
it's
so
also
cool.
about putting out what you need in the universe, right? Like posting on social, mentioning it to friends. Like when I'm have these ambassador meetings for my community, my Beauty Boost community. I have like a team of 35 ambassadors that, rep the brand. They love the mission and they help support me during events. And I put it out there in meetings of like, hey, I have a pallet of protein powder being delivered. Does anyone have a garage for me that they can store it in? Because I don't have storage in my place. And one of my ambassadors like, yeah, we can put it in my garage. So it's really about also vocalizing those needs and
Mm.
being upfront with the people that are in your life and asking for that support.
I love that too because it goes back to this like this programming conditioning or what like story that we tell ourselves of, well, I don't want to inconvenience someone.
Mhm.
Right? And it's like, well, it might not be an inconvenience just because it might feel like an inconvenience to you. So
Yes.
it's like also what are we projecting out there that's really our
Mhm.
feelings that somebody
Yep.
else might not even have.
Yeah. Yes, 100%. And, to be fully vulnerable and transparent, this year for me has been the year of worthiness and like
Mm.
believing that I am worthy of that support, that community for women that are, miles ahead in their business to pour into me and feel like I deserve that. I went through a pretty rough breakup at the beginning of the year. I was engaged, planning my whole life out, and my fiance left me the first of the year. And that really kind of rocked me and, kind of propelled me in a really good way of being financially independent and realizing that, maybe I shouldn't look for a partner to support me and I should be supporting myself. And I don't think she fully loved me for all of me either. And so it took me a while to let go of all of those stories and narratives that had been, developing over the last 4 years, that some of them I wasn't even aware of, realizing that, oh, she didn't see me and love me for who I am. So I had to really work through to feel like I deserved that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Of
That's
course.
such a big it's such a big thing too, as far as worthiness, because for whatever reason, so many of us, I think, come through different obstacles in our life that have, like, they create this feeling that we aren't worthy. And where does that actually come from? And for different people, it's different. Big T, little T trauma, it's experiences all the time, every day, and sometimes it's just a period of our lives, for sure.
Mhm.
But overcoming that and being mindful of that, like, what did it really take and require for you to start
Mhm.
really looking in the mirror and realizing some of these stories that you were carrying? Like, how were you able to work through and shed some of that?
Yeah, I mean, I would consider myself like a self-care queen. So I really, even though I had this pressure of being financially dependent, wanting to build my businesses, I had actually purchased the Beauty Boost. Like, it's a franchise, like I said. So I invested in that, because my ex partner wanted to stay in Denver. Her family's all here. I was very open to moving, with the busyness and the cost of living rising. And then my brother and his wife just had moved to North Carolina, and my niece is there. And so I was kind of like, I'm open to moving to North Carolina, or, really anywhere. And she wanted to stay here. So I invested in the Beauty Boost, and I really leaned on that community. And I was very vulnerable from the beginning of like, hey, this is what I'm going through. I would love to show up 100% and like really deep dive into this community. And I also need to heal myself and make sure that I'm in the best place I can to lead you in the best way that I can. And so there was a lot of like vulnerability. I did a lot of breath work in the beginning. I made sure to take care of my body. So I started working with a personal trainer who also got involved through the Beauty Boost. And now her business is booming. I'm not taking credit for that. She's an amazing person. It's just more seeing the connections of all of
Right.
that. And she gained some clients and some exposure through that. And yeah, so I started working with a trainer, making sure that I was feeding my body the right way. It really all just started with like being honest with myself as well. And journaling has also been a huge practice for me, because I'm that type of person that I feel like needs to tell someone something, or like always be verbalizing and oversharing in some way. Like, I feel like that's one boundary that I'm still working on, is where do I overshare, right?
Mm.
There's vulnerability, and then there's also like too much information at the wrong times. So I really leaned into journaling, and I've filled up, gosh, like 4 journals this year so far, just by, if I feel uncertain about something, I journal it out. I allow myself to process my emotions as well. And I'm really working on, um, not reacting and just responding. And so it was a lot of self-awareness had to be brought into the picture. And I really had to dissect what those stories were and where I wanted to be. And I knew that a lot of those stories weren't aligning with my future self, with my values, with my authentic self, right? And so I think it took a lot of deep diving into me as well, and giving myself that time and grace to be able to do that. Um, and I did that through, I was a nanny, for 8 years. I recently just ended my last contract at the end of the summer to really pursue entrepreneurship. And I didn't really want a summer nanny job, but I knew that that would provide me the finances to be able to continue to, have my personal trainer, be able to take time for breath work and all those things, to make sure that I'm doing the healing deep down, so I can then propel in my business and in this position as a community leader.
Okay, I have a question, because again, I follow you on social. You do a lot.
Mhm.
Like, you do cold plunges, sometimes you do IVs, you do
Mhm.
breath work. Like, you're telling me all these other things. I see you working out at the gym.
Mhm.
You're going on walks, you're doing these connections with other entrepreneurs and helping them with their
Mhm.
events, and all it, like, you really do a lot. So how tell me about I know this word balance, right? But how do
Mhm.
you actually incorporate this
Yeah.
real time effort to work on you and take care of you and honor this healing journey that you've been on while
Mhm.
also nannying and doing all these other things that I just mentioned? Like, what
Yeah.
does that look like? How do you reverse engineer your schedule?
Yeah, I mean, so that is honestly something I'm still figuring out and working through and learning to prioritize tasks and to not take on too much. I feel like in the beginning when I went through the breakup, there was some type of distraction period, right? Of like, oh, I'm going to take on all these things so I don't necessarily like notice these feelings.
Yeah.
And I learned very quickly that that is not the way to handle it. And so for me, balance is something that we never truly achieve. You know, there's not like a summit to the top of the balance mountain that we can stand on and put a flag in and like, yes, we achieved balance. It's all about whether we're working towards it or working
Yeah.
away from it, right? And so for me, it's really just I kind of let my intuition lead me.
Mm.
And I've also learned that it's okay to take a day or two off of my businesses because I've built them in a way that it's not detrimental for me to just need a day, right? Everyone, if I have a call scheduled, like everyone is pretty open to rescheduling if I'm vulnerable and say, hey, I'm really not in it today. Is there any way we could move this to next week? So I've been asking for what I need. I've been upfront with my boundaries with everyone that I work with.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I said, like taking the time to do the cold plunges, to meditate, to go on walks, all of those things help me to show up in a better way as a leader and as a coach. And I think if I'm not living it, then how can I lead other people and teach other people and coach other people through these things? And, you know, to be honest, these are all lessons that I've learned pretty quickly this year. And it's not just this year, it's been my whole life, but I feel like this year has really been the test of okay, your life is definitely not what you imagined. How do we take this and work with it and make it even better? And that has been through, like you said, I work with a lot of other female entrepreneurs, just having coffee and co working sessions. And I actually just officially had a conversation with an amazing woman who has agreed to be my mentee. So I'm now mentoring someone as well, because I feel like if all of these amazing women are taking the time and energy to pour into me, I also need to be doing that in the community as well. And so, you know, to go back to your point of balance, it's really about like listening to my intuition and what I need for that day, and also honoring the commitments and the people in my life and making sure that I'm doing my part without affecting me negatively, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So in the situations where it's like, okay, I have taken on too much, I do feel overwhelmed. There's all these things happening,
Mhm.
but I have these commitments to these people. How do you handle that?
I mean, honestly, I feel like the universe helps me a lot. There's a lot of times where I'll be like, oh my God, I have this call and I don't know if I can do it. And then they reach out and reschedule.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's, I think it's again goes back to this vulnerability piece and being authentic to myself and just saying if I'm tapped out, like I'm upfront about it. And then, you know, making sure that I'm pouring into myself and filling my own cup so then I can fill others' cups, I guess. I don't know if that answers your question exactly, but just you know, there's also situations where, you know, for example, I was creating content for a brand on TikTok, and I was posting 20 TikToks a month and being paid X amount that covered my rent and a little bit more. And so for that, for a long time, that was kind of like a crutch in a way because I wasn't really putting that time and energy into my businesses and into my community. And I knew it was kind of out of alignment. I was feeling it. And they recently like restructured their content creator program and took me off the team, which, you know, I could take that really personally and I could say, oh my God, I wasn't doing a good enough job, like, or be upset about it. And I'm just like, you know what? Thank you, universe, for releasing me from that. I'm losing $1,000 a month in income. And it's also so much more opportunity for me to be present in my coaching business and present in my community.
Okay, let's tap into that for a second.
Sure.
because I think this is good. This is great.
Mhm.
This is what I was getting at, and like what I
Mhm.
feel like is the big question. It's the burning question, right? Because
Sure.
you have these opportunities that you know are out of alignment, but it's almost like you feel like I need them. Like, right? That lack and scarcity comes up of like,
Mhm.
hey, well, this is helping to pay my bills.
Yep.
So then this dissolves. You're like, okay, thank you, universe. You're taking care of me. But how do you get through that like anxiety and that like, ugh, like what am I gonna do to make up that
Mhm.
in the interim? And I have my own answer, but I want to hear yours first.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think, there was a point to like when that happened and I was like, "Oh, like I need rent money for October. I need X amount, which is like $850. I'm very blessed that I live in like a roommate situation where we have a cute little house. It's got everything I need and it's affordable.
Mhm.
It does not have central AC. That's the one thing. But give and take in the big city. So I said, "Hey, universe, I really need to make $850. Like this is my bare minimum. I need to be able to cover my rent." And so I really just trusted myself in my
Is
community.
this conversation? Is this meditation? Is this journaling? How do you do this?
Okay, yeah. So I would say this is conversation, journaling, and meditation all put
Okay.
together. Um, Meditation comes in with visualizing, whether it's a year from now, or a month from now, or 5 years from now, like my perfect life if everything went to plan, of everything that I wanted. And almost every time the universe provides, right? So it's putting it out in the universe, saying what I need, journaling it out. I even converse with friends about it as well. I'm a pretty open book if you know me personally, and I just am very, very honest with myself and the divine, I guess. And so it's really about, for me, like it's a big lesson in trust, and trusting myself, and trusting that the story I've told myself for my whole life of like, I'm not a career woman, I'm not successful. These are all stories I've had to rewrite over the past year to really propel myself into the entrepreneur, CEO, in charge of my own life mindset. And yeah, I mean, I think I've done a pretty good job, but there's still those like sneaky thoughts of like, "Oh, Aly, you probably shouldn't go out to coffee right now because you don't know where your rent check's coming from." But I also have like shifted into, like you brought up scarcity and lack, and I'm really working on shifting into an abundance mindset, and not just trusting myself that I can make it happen.
Oh my gosh. Yes, I agree with that. That trusting ourselves is a huge one, especially as we're navigating the mindset stuff. And it's like there's so many times where it's like, of course, we can just say, okay, well, I trust that the universe is going to deliver. But it's also being so intentional. I love that you say, I have conversations, I write it down, I visualize. Like there's so
Mhm.
many components. And I think that goes back into the self care too,
Mhm.
because as like somebody that does offer Reiki services and is also very much into self-care and energetics and all of that type of thing, um I feel like there's something to be said about being quiet with ourselves and allowing us to feel the fear and
Mhm.
allowing us to like really feel the anxiety or whatever it is, the unknown,
Mhm.
and then declaring what we want and what we desire, and not just in a visualization, but writing it down, speaking it out, because I think that also reprograms our mind to believe it. And as we believe it, there's something energetically that drives us to the target, right?
Uh-huh, absolutely, 100%.
And I don't know, like I'm not a scientist. I don't know all the details of the actual quantum physics and all the things that make that a real situation, but I do know it's real and I know it really works,
Yeah.
right? And I think that there's something to be said. I think what happens if we realize that we have this story of, oh, well, I'm not a successful business owner. And what if today we take that one step to just start writing or rewriting that story? So I
Mhm.
love that you even use those words, because it could be as simple as reminding yourself, like, no, I am a successful business owner or
Mhm.
business entrepreneur. And just how many times can you write that in a day, every single day, consistently, until you start to actually believe it? And then your body and your brain and the energy waves start to like conspire to work with you as the universe does, right? It's like manifestation 101 that all of us are like, how do we manifest all of our favorite, best,
Yes.
biggest, highest things,
Mhm.
right?
Yes, absolutely. And I might have more insight on the scientific piece. I'm doing a neuro-linguistic programming certification training next weekend, which is really all about like the subconscious programming in your brain and how we can really understand ourselves better. And I feel like that will make me an even better coach and community leader. But yeah, it's really about rewriting these narratives. I was on an airplane recently traveling back from seeing family and a retreat, and I was literally writing a full page of affirmations. It was, I am abundant, money flows easily to me, I am successful, I am, a great community leader, I'm an amazing life coach, like I have so much to offer the world. Like so much so that somebody next to me was like, are you a songwriter or what are you writing in there? And I was like, I'm just writing some affirmations. And I think that's another big piece of the journaling factor of like, even if you don't necessarily fully believe it in your state today, like writing it in the future as I am abundant, I am this, and really taking ownership of that, like you said, will reprogram our brains to start finding evidence for that. And
Yeah.
once we start finding evidence for that, we can start to believe it. And then once we start to believe it, like, holy shit, the world just gets like so much bigger. When
Yeah.
we truly believe we're worthy and we deserve it and it's possible, it is possible and we do deserve it.
Yeah. It's pretty remarkable how really it's just that shift of mindset of like, I read this quote the other day and it was like, it's not a matter of like if I can make it happen. It's a matter of me deciding I'm making shit happen.
Yes.
And I think that truly is it. It's like when we fully decide and we go all in, then it's like energetically, it's even the way that we show up,
Mhm.
like I'm gonna win this tournament. Like you're visualizing, you're feeling it, like in your body, like I'm gonna
Mhm.
win.
Yep.
Most of the time you're going to go out and you're going to win, or you're going to give it all you got and it's going to be worth it anyway, right? There's a lesson that comes with it. So I think I love that. And I love how affirmations have been a huge part of my coaching career as well. But I love how people also question them, like, oh, I can just write this down and then my life is going to change. I'm like, no, it requires a little bit more work, but
Mhm.
that's where you start. Like, we
Mhm.
all have to have a starting point, right?
Yep.
Um, but how many times do we speak something to ourselves and then it's like, is this even true? And so
Yeah.
I like to always have people write in the back of like a journal, the last couple pages. I always say, write 100 I am statements, and then go back to them when you say something negative about yourself or that you don't know to be true. Go back to your affirmations because those are the ones that you write down that you actually feel in your body, you know?
Yes.
And if you don't feel them in your body, but it's something you want for your future self, it's a lot easier for you to tap into the emotion that comes with it.
Mhm.
And
I
I
love
love that.
Yeah, I love it too. I think I might even, after this little interview, I might go write 100 I am statements in my journal. And that way I have things to lean on when I am doubting myself. And, to bring up another point, when you said, if you're visualizing a win and you don't win, it's really learning not to take that personally, knowing you did your best and how can we do better next time. I
Or what
think
is the lesson, right?
that lesson, like a lot of people get stuck in this like fear of failure or fear of not showing up in the best way. And it's like, first of all, our best looks different every single day. If you get 8 hours of sleep, you crushed your workout yesterday, like you didn't eat past 9 p.m. and you wake up feeling so amazing, that's going to be so different than a night where you didn't sleep well and you were emotional and maybe you're on your cycle or whatever. So like
Yeah,
recognizing our best is different every day, and just knowing that if you continually put out your best, whatever that looks like, that's all we can do.
I love it. I love it so much. What would you say on the flip side of it, from as like a friend to another friend? What are the most like the best ways that you find to encourage others?
I think the biggest one is leading by example. And because I think if I'm out there, like you said, like you're wondering where I'm at, like I'm showing myself doing cold plunges, I'm doing the work, like that will encourage others to do the same. I've had people reach out on Instagram, like, I don't think you realize how much posting your workouts isn't inspiring other people, inspiring me personally. Um, I also, do take as much like one-on-one time with people as I can and really hear them and listen to them. Like I have a friend I met. So I was a nanny for a family who had a kindergartner in a certain school in Denver. And I met this dad in the pickup line for school because we were both waiting every day. And so we finally started talking. And he was in a place in his life where he'd been married for a long time. He was a parent and he was kind of losing his own identity. And through like just honestly having lunch with him and listening to him and holding space for him to just show up as himself, like he has had so many major shifts in his life over the last 8-9 months where he feels confident in who he is. He takes the time for himself. He doesn't tie his whole worth and his identity to his relationship and to his, role as a dad. And he's even said to me, like, I feel so grateful that I met you and that I am able to receive basically coaching from you as a friend. And so like I really just show up genuinely and authentically in all aspects of my life. And I feel like that has been so helpful to encourage. And one of my friends is going through a hard time right now. She's debating on whether she wants to move back home because she feels like she can't get ahead financially. And so I had a hard conversation with her today of like, do you need this? Like, let's look at your expenses. Like, are there things you can cut out? Are there lifestyle choices you could change? And, I made sure to preface it with like, there's no judgment here. I love you. I just want to be here to support you. And so I feel like I'm very attentive. I'm very observant, and the people in my life appreciate that. And I'm not afraid to say or have hard conversations, and I'm not afraid of confrontation. And so I think encouraging also means, helping people see their blind spots if they're open to it. It's not unsolicited. I'm not I really am working on not being a fixer. And I'm sure as a coach, you get that,
I just wrote that down this morning.
Yeah.
Like, do not provide advice unless invited.
Right, absolutely. And so I feel like I create these genuine friendships and connections where they say to me, like, your and your opinions are always welcome. And that's the kind of relationships that I want to build in my life, are the ones that we can. And for me too, like, I want somebody to be like, hey, you said this and you didn't do it. Or, full transparency, I'm re-releasing my podcast. I said on social media I would do it in September. It's not re-released yet. So nobody is holding me accountable, and including myself. And so it's like finding somebody that will hold me accountable, that will be my podcast buddy, things like that, where I can lean on them for support. I want it to be very reciprocal, and be open to also having other people, be my lighthouses. And so I think by encouraging others really just means like living by example and creating these relationships where I can be fully transparent and honest and vulnerable. And those people also feel that they can do the same.
It's so interesting. I also wonder, how many times do we make these I know that it's like these promises that we make to ourselves actually is also what derails us the fastest, right? Because even though we think that, okay, well, so and so is paying attention and I didn't keep my word on this, oftentimes it's also like eating you alive because you're not keeping your word.
Yep.
Which then affects our overall confidence, because it's like that's where the worthiness starts to come in too, right? So it's like, have you found, with all the things and the modalities that you have incorporated, have you found like a way to also give yourself grace when you don't have the perfect day without beating yourself up and still staying on the I'm going to be accountable to myself train?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that is still something I'm really working on, is consistency in my life and holding myself accountable. And so I think the biggest thing is finding community and finding support, and finding those people that will call me out. But like going back to like looking inward and how I do it with myself, it's still a work in progress, but I would say the biggest thing has been journaling and writing out things, and knowing where I'm at and what I want to achieve and where my goals are, and like being very honest with myself of like, okay, for the podcast example, like the next episode is called like about authenticity and dating. And that's where I get to, share my story about my engagement falling apart. And that's something I never wanted to be a part of my story. I never wanted to be like, oh yeah, like I was engaged and my fiance left me. Like, that's not a fun thing to, accept into your story. Right. But the sooner that I do that, and the sooner that I'm able to be vulnerable and share it, the more people that are going to connect with me and that are going to see themselves in my story. And so it's also reminding myself that like, I'm not here just for me, I'm here to serve. And so if I can realize that it's not just about me and it's about others, it helps me to hold myself accountable and to show up in a way that I'm proud of. Does that answer your
Yes,
question?
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that example too.
Mhm.
Okay, so when is the podcast gonna launch?
That's up. I don't know. It's so hard because um it's just been a really hard episode for me to sit down and record, and maybe it doesn't have to start there. Maybe I can say, "Hey, I know my next episode was supposed to be on authenticity and dating, but I'm really going to talk about this today." And I think, the other piece of my podcast that I got kind of caught up in is I didn't see a lot of value in me just showing up and talking about what was on my heart. I got really lost in the tangible items of like the takeaways and making sure people had a list at the end. And it's really
Mm.
like, no, that's not necessary. Like my story and my voice is valuable, and I provide such a unique perspective that so many people will connect with. So it's really been also accepting that and like really fully believing it. So I would say this month. I don't have a specific date yet, but I have a very easy month. There's not a lot of travel. So let's go ahead and just put it out there in the universe. Let's say by the end of October. So like the last week of October is when I'll re-release. And you
I
can hold
love
me
it.
accountable to that.
I love it. I love it. No, and I'm gonna hold you accountable because now we
I love
have it recorded live right here.
it. We do. And I love that you asked me because it's something that I feel like I've told somebody and they never reached out when I said, if I don't, release it by the end of September, poke me. They're also really busy. They're a mom. They've got a podcast themselves. And so like, I can't blame anyone else for my inaction. Right. So
Right.
I can't be like, oh, Teresa, you didn't remind me, so I didn't release it. Like that's bullshit. And I will not do that. I'm taking accountability for the fact that this is a tough episode. This is a tough thing for me to put out. And so I've really been working on a lot of underlying issues in myself to be able to show up and be authentic in that episode. So
I love it. And I personally encourage you to share from what feels comfortable and safe for you.
yes,
You
I
know,
agree.
because that's also the other reminder is people think like, "Oh, I'm going on a podcast. I have to put my whole life out there." And it's like, "No. You get to choose what feels safe and comfortable for you." And as the story continues and as you continue to heal from certain things in your life or even as you're triggered, things are going to go back and forth as to I no longer feel comfortable talking about this in this moment, but maybe
Mhm.
I will in 3 months or maybe I will in 2 years.
Yep.
You know?
Hmm.
I think that's something really important to just highlight for the people listening because I think we get caught up in what
Hmm.
we should do. And it's like, no, what feels good? Like intuitively in your body, where are you with
Yes.
whatever it is that you're sitting with?
Hmm. Yeah, one of my mentors was kind of saying like you're losing, like your audience is losing a lot of value, or maybe you are because you're not sharing in like live time or whatever. So
Mm.
like she left me January 1st. I started my podcast in May. And I still didn't feel safe in sharing all of it. I was still processing a lot about the breakup and all those things. And so even though I had this person who's very successful, has a huge podcast, telling me you need to be doing it now, I was like, but I don't want to. And so I think that was like really allowing myself that time and space and grace to process, to be in a safe space to then share, because nobody really wants to. You go to an event and there's a gaping wound on stage, like crying and being like, I just got broke up with, like, I don't know. Like, that is not something we really want to, even though people might resonate with that, like, that is not coming from a place that I want to come from. I want to come from a semi-healed place, but also being very vulnerable and open about it and
Mhm.
knowing that my journey, like, as many people that can see themselves in my journey as they can, like, that's going to come from that raw vulnerability, but it doesn't have to be from right out of the gate. And so I love that you reminded me of that grace and just knowing like to share what feels safe, because I think, like you said, a lot of people feel pressure to share everything in real time. And sometimes that's just not how your journey is going to work.
Well, I think also there's so much when we're in our emotion, I don't know if it's fair to say that we're not thinking rationally, but there's a lot of things that we're like so in it and
Mhm.
feeling it that we're not able to really look at the bigger picture. And I
Yeah.
think that once we start to heal, when we are able to look at the bigger picture, it's like, okay, well, I was feeling like this and it was terrible. And I was on the floor crying at the toilet, vomiting, over drinking, doing this, doing that, all of like the worst possible scenario, right?
Yep.
Like just paint the picture. And it's like you can talk about it from a place of like, yeah, I did it. It
Mhm.
sucked. I had shame around it. I had
Mhm.
guilt around it. And I was heartbroken.
Yep.
And then here I am now.
Mhm.
But this was very real. And I get it. I feel you. I've been there. Like, I think that there's something about that too, because
Mhm.
as we go through these heartaches, regardless of what they're about in real time, we also want to see the hope on the other end.
Yes.
Not just like this, like, oh my gosh, this is terrible and I'm stuck here.
Yep. Yep.
So
Absolutely.
I do think that there's definitely part of it that's like, okay, well, yes, it's awesome to know that other people are experiencing this, but that doesn't necessarily give you hope. It's also like, okay, what did you do? How do you feel now? Is
Mhm.
there a light at the end of the tunnel? And
Mhm.
so I think there's a lot to be said about having some healing
Mhm.
happen before you're just vulnerably sharing. Also, for our own peace of mind, because
Mhm.
not saying that there's people that want to be vindictive and manipulative, but sometimes that can also open a wound that you're
Mhm.
not ready to protect yourself through.
Yes. And I think there also is a delicate balance of coming from a place that's healed and level headed than coming from a place of like, I'm here and this is where you're at. You know, there's no like better or bigger than. It's really just like, I want to make sure that I'm coming from a place where I can share vulnerably and feel safe and also have people not feel like I'm talking down to them or like when I was going through or you know what I mean? Like so there's
Yeah.
like that's what I'm trying to figure out that balance of creating and not being like, oh, I'm here, you're there. I want people
Mm.
to see themselves in my journey and not feel like I'm coming from a place of like, oh, I'm better now, or like I'm fully healed and this is how I got here. It's like I'm mostly healed and I'm still struggling with this. And this is what I did to get through the really hard times to maybe just help people along in their journey as well. Does that
I
all make
love that. I feel like that's such a huge I love that you said that too, because I'm like, "Oh, I should think about that." Because it's just in the way that we communicate. It's
Mhm.
not really the intention ever to be like, "Oh, well, I'm here and you're there." But
Right.
it's also like, how can we communicate better to bridge that gap and
Yes.
to meet someone where they're at without creating that?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
huge. I
Mhm.
love it. Oh my gosh, so much good stuff in this chat today. I am so excited that we got to talk. I'm going to wrap things up now, but how can people find you? Where do they find you? What do they find you for? Tell
Mhm.
us all the things.
Yeah. So if you're looking for a life coach specializing in authenticity, you can find me at on Instagram at authentic Aly, ALY coaching. I also have a website that's in progress. I'm working on revamping it, but that's www.authenticallycoaching.com. There's also my community. So if you're in the Denver area, and even if you're not in the Denver area, we are in 27 cities and counting. So look at thebeautyboost.net /cities, and that will tell you all of the cities that we're in. If you're in Denver and you're like, hey, I want to vibe with you, I have a business I want to get involved in, there's so many ways to be involved in my community. We also have an amazing brand ambassador program. If you're looking for a community that you want to be volunteering in and like seeing the behind the scenes and helping support me, you can find me on Instagram there at _Denver.
Perfect. And I'll make sure to tag all of those in the replay. And thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate you. Thank you for being so transparent and just vulnerable in today's talk.
Well, Teresa, I just want to say thank you for this opportunity because I've been waiting to connect with you for so long. And I'm just so over the moon and grateful that it happened when it did. You know, the universe is looking out for me. And I
And
think
me.
I'm just in such a good place now. And so thank you so much for your patience in getting this all set up and for all that you do as well, because I think you're also an amazing coach and community leader, and the fact that you're providing this space for people to be seen is incredible. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I received that. Have a good day.